right, welcome back to your favorite podcast on the planet, Realty Talk. We are excited. Lots of good things to talk about today. To my left, we have the queen of the closing table, Suzanne Seini, CEO, founder of Innovate Realty. Fresh off a big meeting this morning. Sounds like you were presenting to like hundreds of people.
Yeah, 800. We did a mastermind on the 2026 playbook, how to, use AI and just implementing these wins for real estate. And funny enough, we talked about that last week on the podcast. So
yes,
it actually worked out perfect.
Very relevant.
Yeah.
It's exciting.
Yes, but to my right, I have Paul. Are we still doing Fix It All, Hanson? Or
we can go any direction.
We got to do the poll, guys.
Maybe we'll just double click on that.
Yeah, maybe. And for our listeners that didn't listen to last episode, we're toying with a new nickname for Paul. Paul, double click it all, Hanson.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
I like it.
We'll see what happens.
So we should dive right into we want to get into updates and things, but I have a question. So when you are preparing, because in the last 2 weeks, you've been asked to go and speak with 800 agents this morning, or 600, 800?
800 a day, yeah.
And there were like 1,500 a couple weeks ago. How do you feel going into those moments? Are you nervous? Are you excited?
Yeah. That's a good question. I tend to not overthink, because if you start thinking about the fact that you're going to be speaking in front of a lot of people, then, that can be super stressful.
Yeah.
I think it really helps that we produce a lot of content, a lot of video content. And I've been speaking in front of agents for probably the past 15 years between my coaching and everything else, even back to when I was at Trulia. I was presenting in front of agents. So I think I'm comfortable with it. Yeah. But if you let yourself think about it too much, it can be a little nerve-wracking. So I take the opposite approach. I don't think about it until like 10 minutes before.
Just go.
And then I'm like, okay, great, game on, not a big deal. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't really get nervous speaking in front of people as long as I understand what I'm going to speak about.
Yeah.
And if I have some time to prepare, it's good. But
yeah,
I'm the same.
I mean, sometimes it's better for me not to prepare. Like, I think it comes across more authentic and real when, you could just speak your mind, especially in a mastermind. Like, you are sharing best practices of what you do. But so sometimes, I just hop on there. But I do enjoy sharing, what we're doing with every agent. And I think that's what I try and stress every time that I'm communicating and that I have that type of an audience, is that, for me, it's not just about Innovate. It's not just about Realty Talk. It's not just about Mentorical or Honest Escrow. Like, it is about the industry, and I'm passionate about training within the industry. So I enjoy doing it, and I think hopefully people get a lot out of it. But I will say a lot of it comes out on the podcast too. So we have lucky listeners.
It's awesome.
Cool.
So market, I think I should preface it. I don't have a cold.
Okay.
I'm not getting sick. I went to the Chargers game last night,
and
I was worried that I lost my voice when I went to bed, but it came back a little bit this morning.
Okay.
So if the listeners were watching, it was a very exciting game against the Eagles. Went into overtime.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm embarrassed to say I know nothing about this game. Like,
about
that
football.
Is how in my world. No, I know about football, but I did not watch the game. Yeah, I have been running. We have a Christmas party this week, so there's a lot happening.
Yeah, I feel bad because I just kind of show up to that.
That's what you should do. That's what you should do. But so
the Chargers won in overtime. And it was very dramatic. I am a hopeless Chargers fan. It hasn't been great for my whole life because we have never really figured it out.
Yeah, but last night was a win.
Yeah, they lose those games 9.9 times out of 10. But yes, it was a win. We intercepted the ball at like the 2-yard line, and the whole place erupted. It was incredible. There were all these Eagles fans, so no offense if you're from Philadelphia, but they were nasty.
Ooh, okay. Yeah,
it was... it was not a friendly environment.
Got some East Coast action over here.
But I think in bigger news, Fed is meeting this week.
Yeah.
So last meeting of the year. As of last night, I saw an 88% chance of a quarter point cut.
Yeah.
I think everyone's already responded to that. The markets have already responded.
Yeah.
30-year rates were down to like 6.18 as of last Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
So that, that kind of decision's already been baked in.
Exactly.
I think what most people are going to be watching is Powell's kind of response, like how he's talking. Mm-hmm. And, because they're looking for these little slivers of what's going to happen in the future. And they keep these things so close to the chest. Like, the last meeting was kind of a little bit more dreary, I think. Mm-hmm. So everyone's really anticipating, what is his tone in the next 48 hours. So, but it's a big week. I mean, jobs report today and, a lot of things that are going to give us, I think, a lot of data points in the next 48 to 72 hours that are going to give us some outlook of what 2026 is going to look like.
Yeah.
There's obviously the big shops, Goldman, and I think Goldman Sachs last week published that they believe there will be 3 rate cuts next year. Mm-hmm. So they think 25 basis points this week and then 3 additional 25 basis point cuts next year, which could be good.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a very interesting week.
Yeah. Lots happening besides the Christmas party. Who knew? Who knew?
Yes. Yeah, this is the time of year that is kind of crazy, like in all fronts, like personal, family, business. I mean, there's always something going on and trying to close out the year. And, we even yesterday we had conversations about, okay, we have product that we're ready to take to market. Do we take it to market now?
Yeah.
But it's a really good segue into our topic. Our primary topics today. We've got what investors and agents can learn from each other.
I am excited about this because I feel like, as much as our worlds are, that we work closely together, I think in reality, agents and investors sometimes don't. And so I'm really excited for this because I think there is so much to learn from each other because we really look at things through different lenses. I am excited for this. But okay, I kind of want to start with like elephant in the room for it because sometimes there's tension between agents and investors, and I kind of want to surface why that happens and why sometimes we could clash. So, I think we touched on it initially, just agents, investors oftentimes just don't think the same way. They're not looking through the same lens. There's different goals, right? Like ROI is obviously a huge goal for you versus relationships on the agent side. That's really what we're focusing on. Different speed expectations and timelines, different negotiation styles, miscommunication that can sometimes lead to frustration. And then, sometimes we'll see where both parties kind of misunderstand each other's pressure points as well. I mean, I think we see it a lot in what we do because our agents are constantly out there writing offers for investors. Maybe not just you guys, but investors in general. And so they're working with other agents that just don't necessarily understand the investor process. And so it's kind of a balance between, our agent that wants to always maintain relationships with other agents and so there's definitely a tricky dynamic there where yes, our agents want to maintain relationships, but they also want to represent their client to the best of their ability, which is an investor, which is very, very different than just a traditional, buyer, right? Like a person that is feeling the emotions about the situation.
Yeah, I mean, I think, but that's probably a perfect place to start where, you mentioned ROI, investors are very focused on, we buy something, we fix it up, and we want to sell it as fast and for as much money as possible to go into the next deal. And so I think inherently that that focus is just so different than, what a really great real estate agent is up to on a daily basis. And so you're already starting on kind of different planes, is what I would say. I think the other like kind of elephant in the room, I would say, is that agents that innovate probably have it harder than other agents that are representing an investor that's selling real estate or purchasing real estate because of our wild transparency internal between the two operations. So, I think what we try to do between both of our teams is we give a tremendous amount of information about upcoming deal flow, about what's happening in the existing deal flow. And so, and sometimes that means designating the agent that's going to list a property well before it's complete. And what I know about construction is that you never hit your timeline and you never hit your budget. And so, there's emotion that kind of leads into these transactions to a certain degree. We could say, hey, we think we're going to be done with this on December 1st. And every once in a while that happens right on December 1st. And then oftentimes there's a week or 2 or 3 weeks of delay. And so when you're an agent, you're like, hey, I want to go and sell this thing. And you're very excited to start marketing and going and getting it done. And as an investor, sometimes we're in the same boat. We're like, man, we just got to get this on. Yeah. And that leads to these gaps where maybe product isn't 100% perfect. An investor looks at it and says, I would rather take it to market not 100% perfect and get out of the deal and move into another one. And an agent may say, well, let's just take 2 more weeks, or let's spend $10,000 more, do this other thing. And those two things come, I think sometimes they just don't line up. Yeah. And that I don't think that's good or bad. I think it's just different. Yeah. Yeah. But, from my perspective, as a real estate agent in 2025 or 2026, if you're not actively building relationships with investors, you're missing a huge section of the market. What I can say about Southern California is I think that 20% of single family homes that trade that will sell in 2026 will go to an investor. Right. And so really, that's the purchase and the resell. And so, if you're a real estate agent listening to this and you wake up and you're very focused on your sphere of influence and marketing in your micro pocket that you work, but you're not looking at investment grade transactions, you're missing out on potentially a 40% lift in your total volume next year. Right. Yeah. That doesn't mean that it's going to be easy. Yeah. And that there will be, simple transactions because those desires are different. But I think it's a huge chunk of business that people are leaving on the table for sure. Yeah. And I also just want to add, because I think oftentimes what I have seen in these transactions as well is you have an investor who has done a lot of business, right? And you have an agent who's probably done a lot of business too. And so each has their way of doing things. And and so I guess I would say, we're kind of spoiled because we work with you. And obviously, working with you, you're very open to kind of agent feedback, agent perspective. I think, some investors often think like, we don't need that, or we don't, we know because we've done so many. And I think what's really great about our group is I don't think anyone ever, it's kind of up to all of us to work together. I think you bring really great points at your team as well. And the agents bring really great points. And we kind of meet somewhere in between with all of it, as far as like pricing goes and strategy and everything else. Whereas, I think there are other investors out there that maybe don't do that. And so I think it's kind of created a perception with agents that it's like, it's going to be done just this one way, which isn't how we traditionally or normally do business, Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's if you, and just taking it like a step further macro, like when you look at the United States, there's not one single family fix and flip investor that has a stranglehold on the market. A lot of industries have 1 or 2 ginormous players that have kind of national reach. Even like the lending business. Yeah. I mean, there are 5 to 10 companies that lend in 30 plus states, and they do 80% of the volume. Right. And then there's hundreds of other small lenders. In the fix and flip business, as an investor, they're usually very local. Right. The average investor at the lending operation does 2 flips a year. Wow, yeah. So a lot of these people investors are investing on the side, or maybe have retired and then they do, 1 or 2 deals a year, for some income. But it's a really complicated business. What it really is a massive construction undertaking.
Yeah.
With some really strong underwriting.
Right.
And so I think that part is probably also where things get frictional, because the average deal for buy house right now usually is 9 total months of duration, which means we buy it, we fix it, and we want to get rid of it within 9 months.
Right.
And so I find myself falling into this trap all the time. At the very end of a project, you've got I wouldn't call it snow blindness, but you've got fatigue.
Yeah.
You're like, I want out of this
Get
deal.
it done. Yeah.
Yeah. And so and our project managers feel that, and so then the agent is taking on a project that maybe is not perfect or 100% done, and that's their expectation. Hey, it was a development deal, so it's going to be like,
yeah.
And that's not necessarily always our priority. I've taken product back to market that I'm not like, oh man, we knocked it out of the park, but we just have to go and sell it.
Yeah.
And then I've taken product back that's like, holy smokes, this is incredible.
Yeah.
And there's never like a true North Star.
Right.
I mean, every deal is so different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would also say, to buyers out there and, just our audience in general, it's like, just because something, was remodeled, it's not new,
It's not ground up.
So there are going to be some things that pop up. But I again will say, I think, not to make this all about buy house, but working with your team when, some of those red flags do pop up, you're probably one of the few investors that I see that steps up and is like, we're going to take care of it and deliver a quality product. So,
well, I think that's really ultimately, we want to be in this business for a long time. And investors, I think, get a bad reputation for a few different reasons. Number one, some of the product they put out may not be perfect. In fact, I was with one of the guys I was with at the game last night, bought a house from another local investor that I know, and was just like, oh my goodness, this thing and this thing. And the day after he sold it, just basically delete my number.
Oh my
and it's
gosh.
like, oh boy. And so I think, we always want to put our best foot forward. And, if we can fix something and make it right, we absolutely will do it.
Yeah.
Because we do care. But that doesn't mean that some of our negotiations feel that way.
Right.
So I think a lot of times, there's kind of two sides. We care, and we're going to go and follow up and make sure that our buyers have a good experience. But when I'm buying new real estate, I'm incredibly non-emotional.
Right.
And so I care a lot about the exit experience. But when I'm buying, I have zero emotion.
It's about the numbers.
That's it. And so that same agent could have 2 very different experiences with us.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think that leads us to the next segment, which is, what is it that agents can learn from investors?
Okay, so we're flipping the conversation.
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's a great question. Investors make decisions based off of linear financial information. And so I'll just spend a second talking about that. When we look at a deal, we're looking at, first, what do we think we can sell this for? So after renovation value, we call that ARV. We look at comparable homes that have sold in the last 3 months, 6 months, always within a year, depending on the market. We look at the fit and finish of those homes that are selling, and we try to extrapolate what we think this specific asset we're underwriting will sell for based on those comps. Then we look at the scope of work, like what we're going to have to go and do to make it worth that. And then we estimate the amount of hold time, all of our expenses to enter the deal and exit the deal. And then that gives us, kind of where we can buy it. And we think about deals as a return on revenue. There's a lot of investors that look at cash on cash or return on equity or return on investment. And they're all slightly different. But we look at things, we underwrite things as a return on revenue. So if we're selling a $2 million asset, our target is to make 10%.
Right.
So we try to buy 10% deals, very thin margins when you think about it. I know a lot of people think that investors are out there making, gobs and gobs of money. And sometimes we do on a deal. But, I would say most of our deals that we bought and sold in 2025 we're actually under that 10% threshold. So a lot of times we're buying an 8% deal because we're bullish on an area, or or we just we need to get into a deal or something. So, but I think that's another good kind of point here is that for us, speed is the whole world.
Right.
So when we look at return on revenue, what can really impact that is our cost of construction, because once we buy something, we're baked.
Right.
It's our cost of construction and how fast we get it done, and then how fast we sell the property, because we have carrying costs. Or if you're a true cash investor and you don't use a loan, you have a cost of your capital, because as it sits in that deal, it's not going into another deal.
Yeah.
So we do look at each individual deal from a return on revenue standpoint, and then the actual net performance of the business, I think about it as return on equity annualized. So if I have $10 million to go and put into deals, I want to get those dollars in and out of deals as quickly as I can.
Right.
If I can rinse those dollars twice a year versus once a year, once and a half, 1.5 times a year, my annual earnings are going to be, much better. So speed is everything for us. I think offers are, because speed is everything, and because we look at those numbers so, tightly, our offers are very strategic. They're not personal. They're not emotional. We don't have a vendetta.
Yeah.
I've heard that in the past from people like, oh, this investor's just an asshole. Like, he just wants an incredible deal. It's like, maybe we're wrong. Maybe we have one of our data points wrong. If we think ARV is $2 million and we think our renovation is $300,000 and we want a 10% deal, we're probably coming in at 1.3 or 1.35 or something like that, depending on the carry. And so if you're a retail agent and you look at it and go, oh my gosh, this house is going to sell for $2 million once they fix it up, most retail agents underestimate the cost to actually do construction, the cost to acquire, hold, and then resell.
Yeah.
And so they think, oh man, this person's trying to write an offer $700,000 below market value.
Right.
That's not really the case. Best case scenario, we might make $200,000 on it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of tough. We do value long-term relationships. I think that's a really important note. I've got some friends that are local investors, and they don't spend any money marketing. They don't have huge teams. They do 2 to 3 deals a year, and agents bring them a deal and agents sell the deal. And so they really care about those agents that are transacting with them. But that also has another side to the coin, which means they really don't care about that seller. If they're buying a house, it's all numbers, no emotion. They walk in the house, they're not thinking, oh, my kid's going to play here and this is their room to sleep in. It's like, no, do the numbers work or not?
Yeah.
And so it is kind of a bit weird that way. I think that the last point we would make is that agents that understand how to underwrite a deal as an investor are going to be more successful.
Yeah.
Underwriting, every investor does it slightly different. Our underwriting process is usually pretty quick.
Yeah.
We can get an answer to somebody on a deal within a couple of hours, I would say, roughly. But that is with, us making massive assumptions on the construction. And so usually the way that we look at a transaction is we look at the ARV, we estimate what we think construction is going to be based on those photos, and then we walk the property and then we write that offer. But we still haven't inspected it yet. And so sometimes that can change a little bit.
Right.
But understanding how your investor is going to underwrite a deal is going to make you sharper. You'll spend less time on deals that don't make sense.
Yeah.
And you'll go find deals that would.
Yeah. I've seen just within our brokerage, like we've got a handful of agents that I feel have really kind of mastered that. And we know that they're a great resource. We can kind of trust what they're bringing forward, and having that tool in the tool belt, I think, is huge for an agent in 2026. If you have, like you said earlier, if you haven't, gotten there yet, I mean, now's the time.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I would say about that, and maybe it's better in the closing section, but buy house as an investor. We're investing all over Southern California. I would say, 90% of the time we buy an on-market deal, it comes from an agent that's at the brokerage because they're just attached to us and they see all the transactions we're doing. But, I'll throw it out there. If you're an agent at a competitive brokerage to innovate, reach out to us because we'll train you how we underwrite, and you can bring us deals. I mean, we transact every once in a while with agents from other locations, but we're not afraid to go and train and develop people.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that are in the investing space that think, hey, if I show other people the way I do things,
they're going to go do it.
Yeah, and
they're
that's
just going to steal the
model or whatever.
Exactly.
I mean, from my perspective, execution's key, and it's an incredibly vast market. There's so much opportunity for everybody. I mean, we're happy to spend as much time or as little as needed to help somebody understand how we do stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, in fact, we run, I think usually once a month, we run like a 4 or 5 day boot camp on how to underwrite a deal as an investor.
Yeah.
And we welcome anybody to come to those.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's change it up a little bit.
Yes.
So I'm going to tell you what investors can learn from agents, because I think I've already learned a lot from, working closely with you and the team, and I think, vice versa. But for our listeners, here's where investors can learn from agents. So agents have that deep local market knowledge that I think is really what's important when working with an investor. I think we saw early on where agents from our brokerage were looking into markets to try and bring deals for Buy House that they didn't really understand, because they were looking for deals. And I think that that's okay. I think that you can branch out.
Yeah.
But I think a great place to start when you first start doing this is looking in your own backyard, a neighborhood that you're super familiar with. Because when an agent does, farm an area, they know the neighbors, they know the community, they know the buyers that are coming in. And that is just information, a lot of information that you just can't find. You can't Google, what's going on within a community. Not every property with good numbers is a good buy. I think that goes back to the market knowledge.
Yep.
What is the buyer looking for in this community?
Yeah.
And sometimes it looks really good on paper, but in actuality, it's like, no, this isn't what the consumer wants. They don't want this location, or, something else is coming that they're not interested in. Presentation and communication affects whether an offer wins. And that one I really stand behind. So I know that I have been accepted on offers that maybe weren't even the highest offer before.
Yep.
But because I know how to communicate and work with other agents, they want to work with me, and they will express that to their sellers.
Yeah.
They're never going to just be like, oh yeah, take her because it's going to, hopefully not. If it's not a better deal.
Yeah.
But if they explain to their seller, hey, this agent is responsive, she knows her stuff. She's been in the business for a really long time. She knows how to take a deal to the finish line, versus this deal might be a little higher, but I haven't worked with this agent before, and the responses have been kind of shoddy, and I don't know, they might be brand new. We don't know if they could take the buyer to the finish line, because honestly, it is a huge part of a transaction is just really controlling your client's emotions.
Yep.
Because it's easy for them to, get distracted and start feeling all the things.
Yep.
If you don't have someone that is an expert guiding you through the process and assuring them that this is all normal,
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's a good point.
Pricing strategy involves psychology, not just formulas, which again, it speaks to knowing that buyer in the market. It all kind of points to that market knowledge. And then, really a good agent can prevent costly mistakes. And I think, we have a few that I can think of off the top of my head where it's like, the agent is my thing that I always say, my value is protection. And no matter how many transactions you do, when I am front facing, I know that I am not going to put you in a position that is going to leave you open for, liability or, I know how to navigate that world. And that could potentially cost a lot of money if those things escalate. So I think just having a good agent that does know what they're doing, and builds relationships and communicates well, it does really help with some, eliminate some of those other risks.
Yeah, I can speak to that from one angle too. I obviously follow a lot of other investors and speak to a lot of other investors, and there's this training system out there that develops and trains investors to look for fixers that are on market, and instead of having representation, going in with a strategy that the listing agent will double end the deal to represent them to get their lower offer accepted.
Right.
There's a whole dynamic and training around it.
Yeah.
And I think inherently that is a very dangerous way to think if you're an investor, because by definition, what you're saying is that you don't have a great agent on your side trying to get your transaction through to the finish line. You're trying to get kind of a little angle, to have your offer accepted by playing with that agent that has the listings financial upside emotion, right? And I think that's incredibly dangerous, because now you're leaving all of the points that you just made about having a great agent protecting you and trying to allow you not to make those big mistakes. You're leaving that all up to somebody that has now, the double end of a deal, at the tip of their tongue, and they're like, oh man, I got to get this one done.
To just push it through versus like educating you on whether it's a good deal or not. It's a really tough. I mean, we'll have to talk about that another day, but really just double ending in general. Like you really have to do your best for both parties. Yeah. It is a tough situation. So. Okay.
So I think we move to the next segment, which is examples of how collaboration creates wins.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think there are some real situations that show working together and the outcome being positive. First off, obviously, more than anything, communication.
Yeah.
Like clean, well-communicated investor offers are going to beat other investor offers. I also think that, in today's market, it's really tough as an investor. For the most part, we're competing against other investors, but I would say about half of the deal flow that gets tied up, that's true investment grade, is getting tied up by a wholesaler.
Right.
Somebody that has the intention to go and assign a deal.
Yeah.
And so I believe that the relationship and collaboration with the agent that's representing you as an investor on your next purchase is critical, because you've got to let that listing agent know, hey, this person intends to close on this deal. They're not out trying to get something tied up. They're not going to jerk your customer around for 20 days and then cancel at the finish line or something. Like, they truly want to go through with the deal. I mean, that to me is one of the very first, probably one of the most important reasons to have a great agent that you can communicate openly with.
Yeah.
I mean, because there's times where we go into a deal where we don't intend to buy it and we just want to assign it.
Yeah.
And having our agent understand that from the get-go is critical.
Yeah.
And there's a ton of listing agents that are great to do that.
Yeah.
But not knowing is really concerning.
Yeah.
Agents preventing investors from buying problematic homes. I mean, again, trusting your agent and collaborating with them to walk the property together.
Yeah.
And getting their perspective. Hey, who is the buyer for this property? If it's a highly desired school area and the home doesn't really work for kids, maybe it's not a deal.
Right. Right.
So little things like that. I would say investors giving agents repeat business and steady volume. If you can feed your agent and have 20 to 30% of the deal flow that they're touching on an annual basis coming from you, obviously, that's going to slowly improve over time. And then just aligning strategies, for smoother, faster transactions. I mean, obviously that's critical. That's what we all want, is speed.
Yeah, and I would even say in more transactions, you know. I mean, I think it's fun talking about it from this perspective, but it's like we have experienced it with our agents and with Buy House, so it's cool to actually see it all come together. We have agents that it's changed their life working investment deals that they had no idea that they could even do before. And that, not to say that conversations are not frictional, because there are, differences in the mentalities, but I think what's really great is that we're able to come to, all kind of come together, see each other's sides, and then close out the deal. So I would just say, at the end of the day, investors and agents are not on opposite sides, on opposite teams. They're partners in opportunity. And I think, we've seen it firsthand. We encourage agents, regardless of who you're with, to reach out to Buy Buy House. Because, there are certain investors that are used to working with agents and understand that relationships matter to us and things like that. So overall, agents that do understand this investor mentality, they will close more deals. So with that, I think we can wrap. I think we nailed it.
I agree. I mean, I think, in closing, 2026 is going to be a great year for Innovate and, for Buy Buy House. We've got, a ton of really great deals that agents at Innovate got us into that we're under construction on and bring it back to the market. I think there's probably 100 transactions, that will, or 100, in and out transactions. So 200 total transactions that Buy Buy House might be in next year. Which is exciting. So if you're an agent at Innovate or you're out there listening, at another brokerage, again, I encourage everyone to reach out and just, speak with us, learn how we think, because, that could be you that represents us on 4 or 5 or 10 of those. I don't know. And then likewise, I mean, there's so much that we learn as an investor working with a broker like you, and then the agents that we have at the business. It's been really insightful. It's been fun.
Yeah. Cool. So yes, I would encourage our listeners, if you guys are interested in taking your business to the next level next year, reach out, make sure you subscribe to Realty Talk, follow, like all the things. And we'll see you next time.
All right. See you guys next week.